How many people in the universe get to meet the Doctor, let alone travel with her? Being with the Doctor, you don't get to choose when it stops, whether you leave her or she leaves you.
The Doc would really want us to keep an eye on the planet, right?
But how's that possible?
If we don't help, the human race is going down.
You with us?
As of now, you will see new defense drones at work.
These machines are going to change the world.
Yo, remember us? I'm Captain Jack Harkness, and I'm immortal.
Are you feeling insecure? Because you seem to need a lot of praise.
Do I?
Prepare for maximum extermination. Not you guys.
Don't move!
Now, Jack! Stay strong. People waiting for you.
Hello, everybody in Facebook land, and Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to WHOlanta, and we're going to be doing a live panel discussing today's brand new Doctor Who episode. What is it? Revolution of the Daleks. That's it. So fact number one, I've already got wrong. It's Revolution of the Daleks. Okay, and I've got a whole panel of folks that we're going to be chatting with tonight, and let me introduce you to these folks. We have Miss Nerd Styles herself, Kat Smith. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
We have Jason Miller.
Hey, Alan. Thanks for having me back on. Pleasure to be here, and Happy New Year.
You too. Those of you who are regulars at WHOlanta will know Ashley. He was one of the two co-runners of the Doctor Who track at the convention. Ashley, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm glad I'm here to discuss this episode.
We have teen fantasy author Catherine Sullivan. How are you tonight?
Okay. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Oh, it's great to see you. And author, DJ extraordinaire, Rob Levy. What's going on?
Hey, Happy New Year. Hope you're all doing great. Stay safe.
And we have Daniel, who everybody who comes to WHOlanta knows Daniel. He is going to hopefully be monitoring comments from the audience. So when you guys have comments, just put them in the comment section. We will highlight them on screen and address them in real time, or at least close to real time. And just to warn everybody watching, I just want you to know there will be spoilers. So if you have not seen the episode yet, don't watch this unless you don't care about spoilers. Go watch the episode and then come back and watch us later. But if you're here live and you've seen the episode, if you have questions about the episode or comments to make about the episode, drop them in the comment section and we will address them. So for the panel, I want to know, without too many spoilery details yet, what are your overall impressions of tonight's episode? Kat, start us off.
I have to be first. You know, honestly, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would.
Okay.
I was prepared for badness because I'm not crazy about Chibnall's writing, so I was kind of braced for badness and I didn't find it terrible. And I thought it was, oh God, it's going to be a whole damsel thing with Jack rescuing her and it's going to be a big long episode. It proved me wrong on it wasn't all of the things I expected it to be. And it turned out to be a lot of things. It was a whole lot of West Side Daleks, which was kind of fun. And a whole lot of, I actually watched Victory of the Daleks last night, and so that was kind of funny to have. I kept waiting for one of these Daleks to offer what's his name, Leon, some tea.
We're gonna talk about that tea scene in just a bit.
Someone to at least own that as a thing.
Okay. So a ringing endorsement. It wasn't terrible. Great.
I mean, I can come back to that later, but no, it was not terrible.
Jason, what'd you think?
I'm going to take what Kat said about I didn't find it terrible, and I'm going to give that a ringing endorsement. Okay. So I've been binge watching the classic series over the last 2 months, and I just starting with Unearthly Child. Just finished 10th Planet last night.
Wow.
And you can follow along at my Twitter handle where I've been doing the Doctor Who pilgrimage hashtag. And I'll be starting with Power of the Daleks, which is the origin point for this story tomorrow. So my brain has kind of been rewired in the language of the classic series. If you think of this, Revolution, as a 3-part classic series episode with a cliffhanger every 24 minutes, it works really well. Part 1 ending when the Doctor gets out of prison, Part 2 ending when the Daleks turn out, surprise, to be evil. Chibnall had a lot of tasks set for himself. There were like 10 different strands of plot just in that one 60-second trailer alone, which is a lot of things to cover for only 70 minutes of TV.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I think he stuck the landing with all 10 of those plot threads. Everybody got a decent amount of screen time. Nothing was really left hanging. There was a pretty good resolution to Revolution. And coming after The Timeless Children, which I had some but not a lot of issues with, I think this was a good follow-up and a way of clearing the decks and getting us back to nice, fairly straightforward storytelling. So for me, that was a solid 7.5 out of 10, which is about as good as Chibnall gets. So I was pretty satisfied. Didn't find it terrible.
All right. Ashley, what'd you think?
I thought it was. I thought it was good. I mean, kind of what everyone else was saying so far is it's. I don't know if there was anything that was just stellar. It had quite a body count, which I thought was you don't see too much in New Who. I recently watched. You know what? We'll talk about that later. So I was because Dalek stories and body counts, and I was thinking a lot about that. I thought it was good. I'm still kind of. I just stopped. I just finished watching it, so I'm still kind of processing it. It was good to see Jack again. I always really liked Jack, and it was good. There's kind of like these neat little throwbacks to things, and one of my favorite throwbacks is. You see the room that has all the mutants in it, the Dalek mutants, and it's the same color as the room in Genesis of the Daleks, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right.
You had these little throwbacks like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm always happy to see that in it. So that's my initial thoughts. I'll have more as we go.
Excellent. Catherine, what'd you think?
I liked it a lot. I was afraid. I mean, they followed a lot of things I thought they were going to do. But I was afraid they were we'd end the episode and we'd still be in the search for breaking the Doctor out of the prison. And having Jack come in as early as that and get her back involved in the action, that was perfect. And having the fam researching all this beforehand, perfect. I'll have other thoughts. We'll go over things. But I got 9.5 out of 10 because I really enjoyed the writing on this. I really enjoyed the acting. Jack was not obnoxious. I love that. Finally,
right?
Everything just seemed to work. There was a lot of quick cuts that there could have been more, but for the amount of time we had, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And Rob.
Yeah. So a lot of it they've already said. I think one of the strengths that Chibnall does have when he writes is not being locked into the 45-minute time grid. And I think when you give him time to develop and connect the dots, this is what happens. You get this or resolution with the last special where it's like a really interesting story with like a start, a middle, and an end. And there's plot lines that, of course, can go out in other places and be finished later, but they're not so bizarrely weird. You're not surprised when they pick them up. And I think every one of the companions had their own moment, which is really hard to do with that sort of combination of people. And he worked in an awful lot of like angst, dysfunction, loneliness, sadness, revenge, and, universal domination in an hour. I mean, he did it better than Moffat could, and I never thought I'd say that. So, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about it sort of started out with a little bit of a pet peeve for me. These people are 2 years ago, loading this destroyed Dalek onto a truck and they're clearly saying that it's a dangerous thing. And the guy, she's like, get it to the destination as quickly as you can. And he's like, okay, well, I might stop for tea. And somebody said, oh, he wants tea. So they built a fake food truck, parked it along the street just to poison him. I thought that was utterly ridiculous.
Wouldn't they have Unit or somebody like?
Wouldn't they have a right?
Because you'd think even with Victory of the Daleks, Churchill knew about Daleks, so you'd think there'd be something. I mean, we know that everyone's mind's been erased like 500 million times, but you'd think at some point the collective memory of humanity would be triggered with this. Or you think that like, oh, it's some weird alien tech. Let's, figure out what we're doing. I mean, that I thought was a little far-fetched. I'd almost would have rather seen the classic hijack it and take it. It would have been a little more believable, but
right.
That might ruin the pacing of the story. But they never sort of solved like, okay, who's this lady? Where is she? Who's she going? I mean, this all might be stuff that comes up later, but it did seem like I know it sounds weird. That seemed like a very sort of John Pertwee plotline thing for me. The whole like intercepting a truck with a fake tea thing. That seemed like very 1970s Doctor Who type of thing.
No, I don't know. Banking on the fact that the guy is thirsty and that's your trap. Kat, yeah. I know you got something there.
Between that and the bait and switch with the reverse clown car with TARDIS thing with the end. It seemed to me like they were taking a lot of their plot device things out of the playbook of Wile E. Coyote.
Well, that has been the one issue that we've had with Chibnall is he sort of throws things at the wall and sees what sticks a lot. So yeah, I watched that and I was kind of like, first I'm like, ooh, tea, but then later I'm just kind of like, okay, but. Considering you had to start somewhere to get it going, and if that was the shortest way for them to do it, I'll overlook it. I don't love it, but he's committed worse things.
It's an expediency.
Yeah.
Well, when you figure Unit had been shut down in the UK,
right?
Yeah, and Robertson basically had been doing a little industrial espionage before, so. I think they probably should. I don't think they built that food truck. I think they might have just taken it over.
Oh, I know. I was being facetious.
Yeah. Okay.
But still.
It's like,
But it's like
I like it. It worked. But it would have been nice to find out who she belonged to. And yes, did point out that they never found out what happened to the driver. So
okay. But I think she meant the driver of the convoy, not
the one who's thrown into the back of the truck.
Right, exactly. I'm going to put up a couple of comments quickly. Martin says, Happy New Year. That's sweet. Hi, Martin.
Hey, Martin.
R.L. Gray says, I thought it was a perfectly enjoyable story, though I wanted her to clever her way out of space jail. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I kind of agree. It was nice to see Jack come back and do his thing, but
I wanted her wife to come and rescue her out of space jail. I mean, she's got a wife who's real good at that sort of thing, but
and a wife who he has helped, when she has made her escapes from jails, he's come to her rescue. So
Just saying.
And why did she need to be in space jail in the first place? It was a big cliffhanger at the end of Series 12, and now 20 minutes into the new episode, she's out with no consequences. Yeah. It seemed like a pretty transparent way of keeping her out of the first 20 minutes so the plot could unfold without her, but I wasn't sure the long-term utility of putting her in this really cool asteroid prison and then making it go away after 20 minutes.
I'm sure the Jejun are going to come back after her again.
I'm thinking, I was kind of surprised we didn't see Jejun in any part of this episode, but yeah, I do think that they will, maybe there'll be a follow-up on this and they'll be after the Doctor and Jack. I don't know.
And I loved seeing the silence in the prison. Oh, I forgot you were here. That's a pretty good line.
I love that. But I loved all those things. And just a real quick shout out to a couple of friends, one of them being John Davey, who was not only a Dalek operator, but also played a Sycorax in jail. The other one is my buddy Rob Alsop, who did the Dalek mutant creatures. So, good job, gentlemen.
Well done.
Loved your contributions. R.L. Gray mentions the origami TARDIS, which Jack Mayfield answered by saying that was one of the basically escape pod from Gallifrey rather than Joe Martin's TARDIS.
Yeah.
I think this is the new version of the sort of like blank slate TARDIS interior.
I did feel sorry about it, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. R.L. Gray says that T stand is like classic CIA KGB stuff. It's certainly James Bond stuff, but it just seems like it was a little haphazard, if you ask me. Okay, so she breaks out of jail with Jack, and the TARDIS team is finally reunited. What did you think about the Doctor and Yaz, Graham, and Ryan meeting up for the first time in 10 months?
It's nice that she found out that it was 10 months for them. They didn't find out how long it was for her because it took Jack 19 years to get
19 years to, yeah.
You know how long she'd been there before Jack found out where she was.
Right.
And then nowhere in the episode did they find out how long she'd been in prison.
Or what she'd even been through. Mm-hmm. A flippant line of, hey, I was in space jail, and that was it.
Yeah, this Doctor doesn't like to disclose a lot, though.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like that was in character with that, but I would like to have seen her get a little bit defensive maybe and say, well, this time for you is this time for me, but again, they're trying to pace up and tighten everything.
Right.
I did like, it sort of feels like when you live someplace and you move away and then you come back and you have to reconnect with all these people and it's awkward. It was kind of like that. And I thought that was kind of nice because they haven't done that in Doctor Who yet. And it really, I think, was probably the only way they could have written some folks out in a way that didn't just seem dumb.
Dumber. Ashley, did you have any reaction to the reunion of the fam?
Yeah, I mean, some of the same things. You've got. It seemed a little flippant to come in. Well, it's been 10 months, and for there not to be any. Well, I was in space jail. Like, yeah, it's been 10. I didn't want to be in space jail. It wasn't my my preference. And it seemed very selfish in a way on the side of the companions of. Right, you deserted us. So I didn't have a chance. I've been in space jail, and then the TARDIS messed up or whatever. Right. I don't know. That seems very, very selfish to me.
Yeah.
And she seemed really numb too, which I thought was a nice sort of touch. She seemed kind of emotionally numb.
Yes, right. You mean?
No, the Doctor.
The Doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Jack did pick up on the fact that shoved her.
Yeah. I did think it was weird that they spent almost the entire episode kind of being mad at the Doctor. Mm-hmm. Like, why did you not come sooner? And nowhere did she ever explain, here's why I didn't and why I couldn't have. And I got here. The first thing I did when I could was come to you. I just thought that there was a weird emotional thing going on there that I didn't really understand the need for. Other than to, usher out the two boys, at the end of the episode.
And also there was no real happiness to see her again, right?
Exactly.
I mean, there wasn't, even halfway through, it wasn't even like, I'm so glad to be back. Jack was, Jack's been gone for, in our world for, 10 years? It's been a while since Jack's been there, and he's super happy to be back. And they're just even they're just kind of numb to the whole thing, and they don't seem really all that excited to be doing it again.
Right?
They seem jealous of Jack.
I thought Yaz did display a little bit of that at a couple of moments.
Can I point out one other thing there? Though?
Of course.
One thing that's kind of interesting, if we look back in season season 2, you've got School Reunion, where we have
Mhm.
you have Sarah Jane and you have Rose doing this, and now you're kind of seeing that within the new series now, where you're seeing this companion we haven't seen in a long time, and you have this kind of jealousy between. It's been, we've had that. It's been going 15 years now. So the show is big enough to almost, and I don't think it was intentionally self-referential, but it kind of unintentionally self-references itself in that way within the new series and not going back to the classic series.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Kat, you had something.
Oh, sorry, finish.
No, you go.
I just wanted to piggyback because Ashley brought up School Reunion. One of my very favorite things about the Doctor is to watch the Doctor learn. And in School Reunion, Sarah Jane takes him to school on, you have got to say goodbye to people. We are human. We experience time differently than you. We need things like closure, and you have to give us that because it is important to us. And we see 11 remember this in The Doctor's Wife, and we see 12 remember this. We see him learning. And in this, I didn't see that. I felt a disconnect. I saw that. And this sort of illustrated one of my biggest problems with 13. And this isn't Jodie's fault. I love Jodie. Jodie is talented and I love her. But I feel like my problem with the character is that there isn't one. I feel like they're so hung up on the fact that it's a woman now, that they're writing her too generically, that she's getting generic writing and direction that's generic. With 9, 10, 11, and 12, each of them had a very specific doctor, and I knew who they were. Within a small handful of episodes, I knew what each of their specific spin on this person was. And we've had Jodie for 22 episodes now, and I don't have a grasp on her. I don't know who her doctor is.
I remember,
and I should. And also, I don't feel that she's being directed. Either he's not telling her what to do, or she's not getting a chance to watch the dailies because she's slouching and she's doing this all the time. And if that's an actor choice, it's a bad one. It's not helping. And again, she's a talented woman. And this is not helping. And I wish that he would help her. So that it's frustrating. There was a particular breed of frustrated that I got, and I'm a Moffat person. There was a particular breed of Moff frustration that I had. And so I think every showrunner has their own, and this is my Chibnall frustration. And I think it was crystallized with this, that I didn't see the Doctor learning I didn't see the evolution in the Doctor's progress as a character.
So Rob, what were you gonna interject?
It almost reminded me of a lot of the same complaints people had for a while about the Davison Doctor, and that they always thought it was very vanilla and very sort of even keeled. But then later we sort of look at it and go, the light goes on, right? And part of it was because we're looking at it through the lens of he's after Tom Baker, and part of it too is that he didn't, and she's doing this in a way too. She doesn't have a lot of the sort of outlandish. She doesn't have a gimmick for she doesn't have the sort of Matt Smith manic hands. She doesn't have like the Tenet Oi, mouth thing going on, or that Capaldi stare. She doesn't have a thing yet that's her own. And other doctors have sort of had that too. But so I think that's something that's sort of in the performance of it. But I also think too that they're not, I sense sort of a restraint with the whole show. That, and I don't know whether that's executives telling them that, and I don't know whether last year was them like, that was them pushing back to see how far they could push the envelope, or if it's just, this is what we're going to get. I think I think everybody in it is great, but I even think some of the companions were really restrained more than they could have been too. There's sort of this.
Jack certainly was more restrained in this than
Jack
he
was
normally
great.
is.
Yeah, exactly. Which I thought was like surprisingly great, is how like nuanced he was. But in terms of just watching, the core 3 companions that we've had, that it still seems a bit. I mean, Tosin Cole was great at this, right? But it seemed very forced and very. Like they weren't really sure where to go. Like they were on a ledge and they weren't sure which way they're going. And I don't know if that's the directing or just the performance, because it's more than one director. So if it's more than one director that's doing this, then it's not a director issue. It's somebody telling the actor something that's above the director. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that production-wise is going. But
so you mentioned Tosin, and I was going to save this for a little later, but I want to just say that this was a really great episode for Ryan. Had a lot of really, really nice scenes. I felt like Graham was a little underused.
Yeah.
But I think that's maybe intentional, because they put a focus on Ryan that he really hasn't had at least not much in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. My weird thought with this, is that he's got 61 Street coming out, which is his American show, right? We know it's at least going to be 8 to 10 episodes, and it could or could not sink or swim. I think they left it open for him that if he wants to come to some sort of Torchwood reboot, that he's on a torch. They Marthed him. That's just kind of the vibe I got. I mean, I wish we had this companion, for 2 years, because he was great in it. And I that scene was just him and the doctor. I missed the one companion doctor scenes. It made me realize, and even the stuff with Captain Jack and the doctor, it made me miss I remember when we just had one companion and one doctor, and we had scenes that really meant something. And again, that speaks to Kat's thing about the direction a little bit too. But I think that, too little too late kind of, but it was just like, I wish we would have had this earlier. I mean, I've always liked Ryan. I always thought he was the one companion that had the most room for growth and exploration. And I still think we didn't get it, which is very sad.
All right, let me jump into a couple of comments. Going back a little bit to the situation with the companions re-meeting the doctor. Martin says that they did it just for the separation anxiety plot line. Back to the tea trolley. Chad says someone from the future told them he got tea on that day, so they went back and replaced the tea person. That's plausible in Doctor Who. Let's see. Martin says, I think Chibnall writes Your Doctor and doesn't have a very strong individual take on the character.
Yeah, because he writes ensembles a lot. Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Chad also says he thinks Yaz should have left with Jack. It had a tug between those two. And let's talk about that just for a quick second. I thought it was really interesting, the pairing up of Yaz and Jack. And this was we mentioned subdued earlier. This was a very less flirty Jack than we really ever see before. He made one little comment to Graham, and that was it. And I thought the scenes with he and Yaz were really, really sweet and had a lot of meat to them. So anybody want to chime in on the potential of maybe the two of them being a show pair later on?
There's a behind-the-scenes answer that I saw on a different blog earlier today. This episode was written and they started shooting 18 months ago. The original plan, this is what I read, is that Jack was supposed to stick around for the next few episodes of Series 13, which is yet to come. But because of the pandemic and with John Barrowman being stuck in L.A., they couldn't get him onto Season 13, which is why he's written out at the end of this one. By a badly dubbed Luke voiceover.
Yeah, it did seem odd that his exit was a voiceover.
Yeah.
So the setup was he and Yaz were going to be the two companions for the first production block of Series 13, and it didn't happen, which leaves us with a bit of a void, unfortunately.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the pairing was kind of interesting because he have a policewoman in training and this guy breaking in with his little fancy square shooting gun.
It in many ways did mimic the Gwen Jack relationship in many ways and sort of the structure of it, but I think that it sort of worked. The chemistry really worked. But I also think too that they're the two companions that want to stay and want to see more and like relish their time with the Doctor. And they're both of those characters and the Doctor are to a certain extent now sort of on this journey of figuring out who they are. Whereas I think Graham and Ryan sort of like have kind of figured that out. And I think that might have something to do with it. I think that with Jack, everything just might have caught up to him. I just think, when you can't die and that happened, I just think maybe he's seen so much that maybe he's in his, really just sort of like, I don't want to say dark period, but I think that a lot of things have taken their toll on him. So I think that he's kind of really has, in many ways, the weight of the world, of the universe on him in a way that the Doctor does sometimes, like we saw with the Eccleston Doctor almost. I think that's just kind of similar.
To a point that we were making a minute ago, Laurie says, did Jack's dialogue seem out of character? He was so agreeable and serious, not the smartass foil to the Doctor he usually plays. I think that's true. I think he seemed a little more like the Torchwood Jack rather than the Doctor Who Jack. His personality changed depending on the role that he's assuming at that time. If he's the head of Torchwood, he was a more serious guy. And that's kind of what I was getting from this. What do y'all think about that?
There was actually a thing I saw online today about, on a UK thing about, are they teasing a Torchwood comeback? And that's
he's been talking about that.
He's been talking about it. Chibnall's been talking about it, and they've certainly laid a couple seeds in this that where they could or couldn't do it. Certainly now, someone's stealing a Dalek from a T, because of a T thing. Torchwood might have done that in the past, But I think that I like having a more serious Jack because my big concern with it was that it was going to get so over the top that it was going to get lost. Everything else was going to get lost. The Silver Fox joke was like the best joke of the whole thing. It's like his best moments are when he does the one or two punchlines and he's back to being serious. That's what he does really well. And I liked him in this, and I was really, really expecting to be frustrated and annoyed because it was going to be so over the top, but it was just going to weigh everything down.
It was the best joke of the episode because there were very few jokes in the episode.
Yeah.
It was a very serious, much more serious tone. Ashley, you got any thoughts about Jack coming back and how he was portrayed?
Yeah, I agree with everyone else. I do think the chemistry with Yaz and Jack was quite good, and you've got kind of this, someone who isn't impressed with him, and verbally says so, right? So Jack kind of thrives on people being and he gets his energy from people being impressed with him. That's Jack. But when you have Yaz, much like the Doctor, right? We've seen this characterization of the Doctor before as well. But you see Yaz kind of like, so you have a gun that can go through doors. That's cool. But then it was also kind of a comeback when he gets to use that gun again and save Yaz. She's a little more impressed then, right? I thought it was great. I love Jack, and he's a character that we haven't seen in a really long time. I thought of it kind of, you have the Mondrian Undead, where originally it was going to be Ian Chesterton that was going to be in there, and you have this character from years and years ago you bring back, and we haven't seen that a ton. We did see it in School Reunion, and we've seen it a little bit, but it's kind of cool to see how the world is real. The world kind of flows and people change, and Jack's having adventures, and now they've intersected again.
I liked I think the first TARDIS scene, there was a moment where Yaz makes a comment and Jack says, "Oh, she's good." And Ryan kind of defensively says, "We all are." I loved that. I thought that was a really, really cool little moment for him. Daniel, I believe this is, of course, who else would it be? It's Daniel, suggested that maybe he was playing it safe don't rock the boat so he doesn't get kicked out of the TARDIS again. Jack says the lady in the laptop repair shop Clara met. Chad says, Yaz and Jack go remake Torchwood. Jodie replaced on who because the writing has just burned the great potential away, sadly.
I want to defend Jodie on that one. I want to split it up into two different arguments. Number one, under Davies and Moffat, those two guys knew how to do emotion, sometimes at the expense of plot logic, but they were very good at manufacturing emotional beats. I'm going to be a little bit rude here, ruder than I actually think privately, but I think Chibnall doesn't know how to do emotion, and he writes about emotion. He read about it in the textbook and is copying what he read, but he doesn't really portray it very well on screen, which is why the Doctor sometimes appears to be a silent, stoic figure who doesn't emote. But even though I don't think Chibnall is the best at writing that, and I can see Alan shaking his head in disapproval, Jodie plays emotion very, very well. The look of hurt and silent heartbreak on her face when Ryan says he's leaving gets me right here and also right here in my other heart. And I think that Jodie is doing a very, very good, subtle job with poorly written material. So I do not want to see her go anytime soon. In fact, I'd like to see her with a different showrunner who would give her a whole other set of challenges, perhaps. But I don't think that she should go.
Yeah.
I agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I love Jodie. Kat, sorry, Catherine, you go ahead and then we'll get to Kat.
Jodie's portrayal follows Capaldi's really well, though, because he was learning to be emotional, and she is basically restrained, but you could see it in her face, the way she reacted when they were basically yelling at her for being away for 10 months. That you could see the hurt in her face.
Yeah.
And just when she was talking to Ryan about she didn't know who she was. And that's why I keep thinking that she's being restrained because she's still trying to work out who she is.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, and also one of the great things there is that it took Ryan to make her realize I'm the Doctor. And I actually quite like that, right? I mean, not that I think the Doctor needs someone to let her know who she is, but she was there for, 19 years at least, right? That's how long it took Jack to get there. And she couldn't work it out on her own. But she could, like, within 20 minutes of being with her companions, she's like she was able to work that out, right? So I mean, I think that reminds us that the Doctor, I'm not talking about Jodie, I'm talking about the character, but the Doctor needs companions, and this has been brought up time and time again in the modern series. But I think it kind of reiterates that.
Yeah, because that's an interesting point, because she does the Harry Potter thing to herself in jail.
I love that. That was so cute.
And that was a nice. So I think there's something to that, but especially like that to me sort of explains a couple things, because how long was he on friggin' Trenzalore? I mean, 19 years is nothing compared to Trenzalore in theory.
Handful of heartbeats to a Time Lord, as Colin once said.
Yeah. So I think that needing a companion thing is really, really true, and the Doctor does not do well in isolation, as we've seen. Over almost 60 years.
So, Kat, did you have a thing you wanted to?
Mostly, I was agreeing with Jason. Ordinarily, I dislike it about wanting Jodie to get better material. I would like her to stick around and get stronger stuff to work with. My favorite moments in this episode were the moments that I would have disliked in the hands of anybody else. I typically hate it when the Doctor gets broody, like when 10 or 11 would be all broody and introspective and whatever. But I loved it in this case because it was something. It was her getting something definite, and also it was her being still for a minute.
Right.
She wasn't rocking from side to side and doing that breathless thing that she does. And she was still for a minute. And that was really working for her. Look, I want to see the oncoming storm. from her. I love it when the Doctor gets scary. And I want to see that from her. I want to see her lose her temper on somebody and get scary. And we haven't seen that yet.
Okay, but the Doctor's personality changes here, every time he or she regenerates. And this is the Doctor who is in prison and walks down a hallway and says, "Good morning, camera 38. Good morning, camera 39." I don't know that she's so much of the oncoming storm as her predecessors were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was in survival mode at that point.
Yeah, part of that is true. Yeah, and I liked that she was in the jail cell and spoke nicely to all of her cell mates, even the Weeping Angel. I think she is the
that was great,
Angela.
Angela, yeah, exactly. So I think she's more of the peacemaker than the warrior, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, but I think that wasn't the best choice to make for the first female Doctor.
Well, then you get the reporters who basically say, "Oh, angry female." It's like,
No, I don't mean that. Because you're right. That's a fine line to walk, because that you don't want to go bitchy. But I think that the first female Doctor, you're going to introduce that the TARDIS makes cookies. Could you have made a cutesy poo choice like that and introduced it for one of the guys? Did you need to do that for the first woman in there?
Okay, I will counter that. By saying at least it's not as bad as giving Sarah Jane Smith a Sonic lipstick.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God.
That is entirely true, but that was in more of a kid's show. And take that up with Russell T Davies, and I got issues with him too. So
all right,
I love the Sarah Jane Adventures. I love the Sarah Jane Adventures with every bone in my body.
Right.
Which is honestly what I was hoping we were going to kind of get out of TARDIS fam. I was kind of hoping for a Sarah Jane Adventures vibe out of this whole thing,
All right, let me get to a couple of more comments. R.L. Gray, talking about jokes earlier, says that he feels like Chibnall is more in the mode of passing witticisms more than all-out jokes, kind of like the early 80s Who. Davies and Moffat were in the Graham Williams jokey groove. I hadn't thought about that. That's an interesting perspective on the approach.
Mm-hmm.
Chad says, in my opinion, Capaldi clicked emotionally from the point he said he was not a boyfriend. You could see why he was who he was. It was what?
Whoa.
Something powerful. Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Whoa.
Powerful in the choice to be an old man, not romantic, but still willing to break the universe to save her. And that kind of brings up a point about the 13th Doctor. There's this theory that each incarnation is in some way a counterpoint or a contradiction to the previous one. It's a reaction from who this person was to who they're going to be next. And after the more dark, heavy nature of Capaldi, it doesn't surprise me that they would go light with the next one, whether it be male or female.
What the Jodie Whittaker Doctor reminds me of, and I'm going to go a little Coen Brothers here. She reminds me a little bit of Frances McDormand's character in the movie Fargo, because she's Minnesota nice. She's very sweet superficially, but when she is disappointed in you and she turns her tongue on you, you want to kill yourself. So there's a little bit of steel in her nice performance, and I happen to appreciate that.
I would have loved Sheriff Margie as the Doctor. Man, Sheriff Margie Doctor would be amazing.
They could just totally reboot Fargo with, the Sacha Dhawan master putting people in a wood chipper, and then her.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a good play to put on at a convention sometime. Dr. Fargo.
I'll make that happen.
I figured you might.
I will make that happen. I know people.
Martin says, the Doctor seems to go through these who am I crises of conscience every other season. He's over it. Well,
yeah, at least. Yeah, after this last season, though.
Yeah. I mean, at least this is one that's imposed upon her, not one that she's just going through on her own. And so my fear is that now that she's had this scene with Ryan and she's had the moment of, I'm the doctor and I'm the one who stops the Daleks, that's who I am. Is this discussion with Ryan going to be the extent of what we see? You know, the whole timeless child thing is a huge change, not only to the character, but to the history of the show. Is this one discussion going to be all we see of that? Is this going to be, you know, I've dealt with it in my own mind and now we're going to move forward? Because my question has always been, why introduce all this timeless child stuff unless it's going to have some repercussion on the story going forward? And if it's not going to, then why do it?
I think it's going to lead all the way into the 60th.
I think it will absolutely lead into the 60th.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard, and that some of the missing Matrix stuff is going to pop up here and there. Plus, the missing Matrix stuff is a great way to do cameos. But yeah, I think that, you know, I think they purposely didn't want to bring that baggage completely into this episode to overwhelm it, because I think if you have the whole timeless child angle with Daleks and Captain Jack, it all folds in on itself. And
like a TARDIS.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time to deal with that later. You know, I want them to deal with it, but I don't want to get hit over the head with it, you know, in the same way that we got hit over the head with Trenzalore with Matt Smith. It's like, okay, we get it, you know.
I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, why make a change that enormous?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not going to change the direction the show goes from that point.
Yeah, you're either all in or all out. You're all in or all out, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
We are reading chapter 4 of a 10-chapter book. In 10 years, we're going to go back and binge watch all of Jodie's 5 seasons, and then it's going to make a lot more sense.
Or we're going to look at it like Colin Baker and go, man, we could have had so much better.
Well, I mean, with Capaldi, we were expecting to have a whole season full of the search for Gallifrey, and nothing happened. So I'm hoping Chibnall's going to be doing a little bit different with bringing this whole establishment of who she is. Is she going to remember more of her backstory? I'm hoping.
Right.
To your point, Jason, we'll in 10 years we'll have Jodie on Big Finish, and they'll completely revamp the character, and we'll have stories between stories and all of this stuff. So
that is the truth. Martin says Joe Martin better make a comeback for multiple episodes. I will lay money this very moment on the fact that she will be in the 60th anniversary special, whatever that special may be. Whether she shows up before then, who knows? But I guarantee you she will be in the 60th. She will be another way of having a multi-doctor story, just like John Hurt was.
She'll be the Eccleston.
In a way, yeah, exactly. Yeah. She'll be the Eccleston replacement,
or the Capaldi replacement. Yeah, one of the two.
No, don't say that. I need Capaldi to come back for the 60th.
I know, but he's.
Let's see. Lori agrees with the crisis of conscience comment. Jason, hey Jason, I agree we need to see more dark Doctor moments to show it's the same Doctor, as the Doctor does have a dark side. Like 13's reaction to Gallifrey after just getting it back felt static compared to Capaldi's smashing the console when he was lied to about the coordinates. Okay. Anybody got a feedback on that? I mean, we kind of covered that point already.
Yeah.
But did anybody want to say anything more about that? I'm going to say no. Okay. Martin says, be sure to check out the season 13 teaser here. Where's here? I thought it was tacky. They repeatedly referred to them as SS Daleks.
Huh. Was that SS or SAS, which are two very different things?
Yeah. Well, there's so many Daleks around at this point. They have to make some sort of designation to figure it out. But at the same time, I understand the point.
Yeah. But they were also referring to, by the end of the episode, as Robertson Daleks. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that we really haven't even talked about Daleks yet.
That's why I'm here. So.
Oh, excellent. I wanted to keep this close to an hour. We're at 50 minutes right now. One thing that I did want to point out that at the beginning of the episode that really, really felt weird to me was that these new drone Daleks that are being built by what's his ass, they're being, I mean, the whole setup at the beginning of the episode was riot suppression and a possible rigged election. And I just thought, I don't want to see, I just felt so weird about having that in a Doctor Who episode. Did anybody else have that same?
I'm not surprised because we've been getting kind of beat over the head with that the last couple seasons where they've used a lot, but it's been so obvious that they're bringing real world things into it. Mm-hmm. But this was so heavy-handed with it; it's almost impossible to not miss it. And I think a lot of it too is just, Doctor Who has always been a tool for social commentary, but it's always done it through sort of sleight of hand or very clever characterizations, like with Sunmakers or things like that. This is, I think it works better when it's done that way and not when it's, beating you over the head with it. I think the fans have spoken about that. I mean, there's been, whenever they do something like this, there's a lot of pushback from fans. And I think for a show that's trying to get a worldwide audience, don't alienate. I mean, make your points, but find a way to do it in a way you're not alienating an audience.
Yeah, but Robertson was supposed to be an American, so that's why they're bringing.
That's a very good point, Kathy.
At least they didn't dwell on it too long.
Yeah,
and that was my fear, that when I saw 2 scenes on that stuff, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be the whole episode, and at least it wasn't. At least it was contained to the first 10 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. All right, Ashley, let's talk about Daleks.
All right, so there are a few things I love more than Daleks on a spaceship invading things. Well, Ice Warriors, obviously, I love way more, but Daleks
should, but yeah,
right. Daleks on a spaceship invading things, like when you get that kind of call off to the other Daleks, which is great because that I think we've seen this design of the Daleks. I call it the Russell T Davies design.
Yeah,
it's so great, right? I mean, it's classic, but it's modern, and there's no need to revamp that. So kind of to see this new, which I like that new design. The drone design. It's kind of cool. It's sleek. I wouldn't mind if that was the way we did it. But we always kind of come back to that. And now, so we get this call off, they come in and they destroy all of them. So those other Daleks are gone. We have these standard Daleks. We know they exist in the world. I love that. One thing I'm not sure about is the last Christmas special. What was that? Resolution?
Yeah.
Resolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have Resolution, and they did this puppet thing, which reminds me a lot of Planet of the Spiders and to some extent, no, never mind. Rootins.
Yeah, right.
It's got these. It has these kind of things too. That's like a new thing with Daleks, and I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I like this weird mutant thing. Meat puppeting a person, it doesn't work for me. It's not what the Daleks are. It actually kind of goes against what we have seen them to be. We did see this in Daleks in Manhattan, and I watched that. It was on BBC America this weekend, so I saw that, and I hadn't seen it since it aired, I think. But
I'm so sorry about that.
so you kind of see it there, and it's something that it doesn't work well, and I really just don't like that in with the Daleks. But it's something new. They try it. They have electricity that runs through their bodies apparently, and they can death ray them by touching someone. Ultimately, I like that. Like I said, give me a spaceship full of Daleks invading a planet, and I'm pretty happy.
Jack Mayfield says that he wants Dalek action figures with LED lights that change from blue to red, and I have to have that.
Yeah,
I'm so into that. I really, really liked the new Dalek design. They kind of rolled it out, making it look like this was going to be the new Daleks. And, they stick around for one episode in the RTD models, which are absolutely perfect. But I really liked the new ones. I thought they were a really cool design.
They were very sleek. If they were going to go, I wouldn't mind that. It's better than the colored ones that we got, the ones of different colors in the Skittle Daleks. That's what they call them, right?
The rainbow.
Yeah, the rainbow Daleks. Those ones, I did not like those at all. They were huge. So it's very sleek, right? That model is very sleek.
Katie, hi Katie, nice to see you. The Dalek story could have worked even stronger without having had the political introduction. It annoyed me that it became so blunt that every person a Dalek ended up killing was a person of color.
Prime Minister wasn't.
No, she's talking about the victims in the street when the black and red Daleks start flying towards the end, I think.
Oh. I didn't notice that as much. Ginger says, the plot was the same as another New Year's Eve special, growing and spreading to a person. To your point, Ashley, I really enjoy that new thing of having Daleks ride the back of a person and take over their mind and use them as their transportation. I think that's really cool. Plus, I also want to say, seeing two Dalek mutants jump from on high onto Jack and Yaz was the coolest part of the episode.
Yeah.
I am here for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't mind seeing the mutants. I think we have things in the Doctor Who universe that already does that. And that's always, I like niche protection, I think. And it's one of those things that just bothers me. If something exists, why create something new that does the same thing? And we have something that already does that in Doctor Who. Now, granted,
do you have something
since 1974? But...
Exactly, and what chance does it have of coming back?
None.
I mean, it could. I mean, the first time we saw Jadoon, aren't they exactly the same thing as an Ogron
or a Sontaran? Well,
they look like a Sontaran, but their behavior is exactly like the role they play is exactly. And anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Martin points out that Jack slinking around and hiding behind corners in a corridor in the Dalek ship was very classic Who.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love that so much.
The Captain Jack hiding from the Daleks, that really was cool.
Hiding in plain sight.
And Mr. Gray points out barely hiding.
Well,
the thing is with Daleks, you have a very narrow, view, but I still thought it was fantastic. I loved seeing that. Okay, let's see. Chad says the puppet plot did not make sense that he would take an alien to a basement and then pull it out of the goo and toss it into the incinerator.
Yeah, he didn't get through too well.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to go the way that Chris Noth wanted it to. Hang on, Okay, let's see. Martin says, I love the riff on that face hugger scene from Aliens. Absolutely. That was the coolest. Jack really liked the whole alien invasion of the body snatchers thing that they have mutated into, since they are mutations that are part human. Let's see what else we have. Jack says, it's neat that the drone Daleks might be an echo of some early reconnaissance Dalek model from their unseen early years. Right, and that's from Resolution 2 years ago. And it was just kind of thrown in like, this is a thing that the Doctor knows about, but there was never any explanation of what it was or where it came from, which is fine. I mean, every time the Daleks and the Cybermen show up on screen, they do something new with them to sort of like, reinvigorate the toy line or whatever they do, Let's see. Human goo food was a win.
That was dark.
Oh, I loved it. I also think there was that scene on the bridge where the RTD Daleks land and they confront the Chris Noth Daleks, and they have the big shootout. Yeah, I know exactly. And I thought had back in Sylvester McCoy had Remembrance of the Daleks had that kind of budget, that's exactly what those scenes would have looked like in '88.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so good.
I also think that when they fly in, and they fly in right next to the TARDIS, and they didn't recognize it.
That drove me. Yeah, that drove me nuts too.
And then they saw it they just saw it a few minutes later, and they're like, "Oh, that's the TARDIS." But they were all right there.
Good point. I didn't. I saw that, and it didn't register in my head.
Yeah, she's like, we gotta be incognito, but then she parks it on a thing where she can watch it.
Right. Exactly. Andy, hi Andy, says the lighting and color grading were absolutely gorgeous, especially the brilliant green in the Dalek lab and the Yaz and Jack scenes. Agreed. And when it shifted from that harsh green to the ultraviolet was a really, really cool transition. All right, got 2 more comments, and then we're going to wrap it up. Martin says, I wish... Oh, now we got 3. Dang it. I wish we had not skipped over a whole subplot of the scientists being slowly taken over by the Dalek. I kind of felt like that had been done in the last one in Resolution enough that I don't think we needed to spend a lot of time on it this time.
Yeah. And with 4 companions and 2 major guest actors with Chris Noth and Harry Walter, there just wasn't any room.
We did have that little horror scene of him phoning the wife and talking about the kids. It's like,
yes,
you got enough of that body horror right there, and then you had the Dalek voice take over. It was like, okay, yep.
Yeah, agreed. And that brings up another really super quick point. In the very beginning, in the scene where the driver is about to get in the truck and go get his poison tea, he has this little scene where the lady he's talking to says, so how's your mother? And he's like, well, and it's just this little thing that doesn't add a single thing to the plot, and it doesn't really add much to characters that aren't going to be there more than 30 more seconds. And I thought it was such a neat inclusion. It was a nice little point.
Mother. And I kept thinking, well, who's his mother? Is it going to be important? And nothing.
But all right, so Jack says, I wondered that perhaps that's perception filter at work atop the bridge. That's possible. Andy says, this was the best Dalek episode since Parting of the Ways and nailed the Dalek as fascist metaphor better than any other story since Remembrance of the Daleks. I will go to my grave thinking that, and I will defend it. In other words, he will die on that hill.
I love that comment because the Moffat years spent so many episodes trying to make the Daleks into something else without ever exploring what they were. You had the Skittle Daleks, you had Davros come back. This was an episode where the Daleks were just plain scary, and I like that, and we don't see enough of that. Straightforward invasion plot.
You know what I loved? The Doctor sends the message to the other Daleks in the vortex, and she says, I know they're there. They're like sharks in the water. And I thought that was so great. That sums them up, man. That makes them scary.
I really wanted her to do like a nice Sean Connery homage, though, and go 1 ping, please, or something. But that's not going to happen. So, yeah, they filmed it ahead of time. So,
let's see. Don't forget to check out the season 13 teaser I posted on the Facebook page. Will do. I didn't even know there was one. Why didn't they attach it to the episode?
In the UK, they did, with John Bishop being introduced as the new companion, Dan.
Oh, that.
I think that's what I mean.
At the end of the episode on BBC America.
Yeah, we saw that. Okay. I thought we were talking about a different something, like an actual teaser for the season.
The world's most generic-looking human as the new companion.
I thought it was Eric Roberts for a minute, but I guess it's not.
No, his hair wasn't that good.
I thought it was like a riff on. I thought it was a riff on Roddy Piper and They Live.
All right. So, any final thoughts that we have not covered that you wanted to introduce?
Well, it's out of shot, but I'm a huge Law and Order guy, going back to the early to mid 1990s when I was in law school. And having Detective Logan / Mr. Big on Doctor Who is a huge, huge thing for me. And you see that Chibnall is a big fan because he was on Law & Order UK for so many years. So getting Chris Noth in the Doctor Who universe, even playing a bad character, is great for me. So I got my Law & Order colors out.
Anybody else?
I did like a little touch of humor with Graham, Graham trying to use some modern day language, and Ryan's going something weird.
Right. That was cute. Let me check my notes to see if there's anything that we didn't cover. No. All right. So thank you all so very much for hanging out with me for this hour, talking about my favorite subject, Doctor Who. And thank you to all the viewers who watched and participated by throwing in comments. We may do this again next time we have a Doctor Who season. Who knows when that'll be? And then we'll have some other pop-up things here and there. Like we'll just come up with a fun panel topic, and we'll just put some people together and have a discussion, in place of not having conventions any longer. If you did not see the WHOlanta virtual convention that we did back in May, all that stuff is still archived on our Facebook page, where you can see most of these folks on panels and Kat in performance. And it was a lot of fun, and we will do something like that again in the future. So, Kat, thank you very much for being here. How can people find more of you if they are interested in doing so?
They can Google Miss Nerd Styles, and I pop up in all sorts of places: Bandcamp, Patreon, YouTube, and I've been live streaming a whole big bunch of music on the Facebooks.
Yes, and playing a favorite Bowie song.
That's just become a Doctor Who song in my head.
Yeah.
Queen Bitch it's a Doctor Who song now.
Right. So, Jason, you mentioned your tweet along of the Doctor Who stuff earlier. Is that the best place for people to find you?
Yes. I also have a semi-defunct blog, which is Doctor Who Novels, the same as the Twitter handle at WordPress. More on Twitter these days, but I took my pilgrimage off today to watch Revolution. Tomorrow I am watching and tweeting my way through Adventure in Space and Time, which was the Hartnell / Verity Lambert docudrama from 2013.
Yeah.
And then I start Power of the Daleks, which is a very similar plot to Revolution, starting episode 1 of the special edition DVD tomorrow night. And then I'm working my way through the Troughton years from there. Please follow me. Join along.
Awesome. Rob.
You can find me on anglotopia.net. As the season goes on, we'll be doing more stuff with that. Needcoffee.com, and very soon, Screen Rant. I'll be doing Doctor Who content for Screen Rant. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's an exclusive. You heard it here first. All right, Kathy, where can people find you?
They can find me at CatherineSullivan.com, which has a link to my author webpage, where I will have things like link to somebody's book.
Well played.
Very nice. Ashley, do you want people to find you? And if so, where would that happen?
You'll find me at Islear, IZLEAR. Yes, it's spelled incorrectly, but I've used that name for 100 years. So you can find me on the internet there, and you can find me on all the different places. Yeah.
And do a quick mention of Geekster, in case one of those happens next year, hopefully.
Cleveland Geekster is a local here, Cleveland, Tennessee, toy and comic book show that I put on annually. And it typically, I didn't this last year, it's usually in September. And we sell toys and comics and pop culture and all those different things. We have about 40, 50 vendors. It's super fun. You can also find if you I'm working on a role-playing game that will be hopefully released soon called The Gun Belt. It'll be kickstarted soon, rather. So you can also find that, and you can find all that by finding me.
Awesome. And you can find me at cosmicpress.com, where I write amazing, cool, super cool books like Children of Time, The Companions of Doctor Who, Facing the Raven, which is a review of Series 9, and Doctor Who's Greatest Hits, which covers all the highlights and the history from Unearthly Child all the way up to the end of Jodie's first season. So I will be updating that again at some point around the 60th anniversary. So check that out and take a look. Thank you all so much once again for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Everybody watching, have a great night. Happy New Year. And we will see you all soon. Take care.